The day began like any other school trip. Excited whispers filled the air as the students boarded the old yellow school bus, eager for the adventure ahead. Mrs. Johnson, their history teacher, had arranged a unique trip to an abandoned asylum on the outskirts of town. It was said to be haunted, a place filled with chilling tales and dark secrets. As the bus rolled closer to the destination, the atmosphere changed. The once cheerful chatter became hushed, and uneasy glances were exchanged among the students. The asylum stood like a looming shadow against the gray sky, its windows broken and its walls covered in moss and graffiti. It looked like a place forgotten by time. The moment they stepped off the bus, a cold breeze swept through them, sending shivers down their spines. Mrs. Johnson tried to assure the students that there was nothing to fear, but even she couldn't hide the uncertainty in her voice. Divided into groups, the students ventured into the dark halls of the asylum. Emily, a quiet and timid girl, found herself with a group of her classmates. The smell of decay filled the air as they moved deeper into the building, their flashlights the only source of light in the pitch-black darkness. Strange sounds echoed through the corridors, whispers, distant footsteps, and eerie laughter. Each step they took seemed to be accompanied by a sense of dread that only grew stronger as they explored the abandoned rooms. In one room, they stumbled upon old patient records and faded photographs. The images depicted sad and tormented faces, their eyes hollow and haunted. As Emily traced her fingers over the photos, a sudden cold hand grabbed her wrist. She turned around, expecting to find one of her friends playing a prank, but there was no one there. Nerves on edge, the group continued their journey, following the dim light from their flashlights. They reached the asylum's basement, a place where rumors claimed the most disturbing experiments took place. The air was heavy with an oppressive presence, and the group could barely breathe. As they explored the basement, they heard footsteps echoing from above. Panic set in, and they rushed back upstairs only to find their path blocked by a door that had mysteriously slammed shut. Trapped in the suffocating darkness, they heard faint cries and whispers surrounding them, but they couldn't pinpoint the source. With trembling hands, Emily tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. The fear in the group intensified as the sounds around them grew louder and more menacing. Time seemed to stretch infinitely as they struggled to escape, their sanity hanging by a thread. Just when they thought they couldn't bear it any longer, the door finally creaked open. Without hesitation, they ran outside, gasping for breath in the fresh air. The experience had shaken them to their core, and they all agreed it was time to leave the asylum behind. Back on the bus, the atmosphere was somber. No one spoke about what they had experienced, but the fear in their eyes spoke volumes. Mrs. Johnson couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone in the asylum, and she decided to investigate further. Over the next few days, she delved into the asylum's history, discovering dark secrets that sent chills down her spine. The asylum was once a place of suffering and cruelty, where patients were subjected to inhumane experiments in the name of science. Some never left the building, and their tortured souls seemed to linger in the abandoned halls. Determined to lay the spirits to rest, Mrs. Johnson returned to the asylum alone. Armed with sage and holy water, she began a ritual to cleanse the place of the malevolent energy that clung to it. As she performed the ritual, the asylum seemed to come alive around her. Shadows danced on the walls, and the air was filled with anguished cries and chilling laughter. Mrs. Johnson refused to be deterred, her determination overpowering the fear that threatened to consume her. As the ritual reached its climax, a sudden burst of light erupted and the asylum seemed to tremble. The spirit's energy surged, but instead of menacing, it turned sorrowful, as if finally finding peace after years of torment. When the light faded, the asylum was silent once again. The malevolent presence was gone, leaving only an eerie calmness behind. Mrs. Johnson knew that the spirits had finally been freed, and the asylum's dark chapter had come to an end. The students returned to the asylum a year later, not as a school trip, but as volunteers to help restore the building to its former glory. As they worked together, They felt a sense of unity and gratitude for the experience that had changed them forever. And so, the abandoned asylum that was once filled with darkness and despair became a place of hope and redemption, a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the power of confronting one's deepest fears. The horror that had unfolded during that school trip would forever remain a haunting memory, but it also became a story of healing and the triumph of light over darkness.